Hello viewers, welcome back to our YouTube channel, KC Accountancy Education Center. We want now to look at a simulation to be able to put in context the other formula that we looked at about M&M model. So we look at a simulation and we see what we can be able to have. So simulation 3, we need to write this question down. It says ABC Limited. ABC Limited is an ungeared company. Is an ungeared company. Is ungeared company with a cost of equity. Is an ungeared company with a cost of equity of 15%. Full stop. They proposed raising debt. They proposed raising debt at 8% pre-tax. In a bracket we have pre-tax, and have estimated that the resulting gearing ratio in bracket we have debt to equity. Debt to equity will be 0.4. Full stop. The rate, they are quoting that the rate of tax is 30%. Then they give us the required. The required has some good parts that we need to do. Of course, they wanted us to calculate the cost of equity after raising debt. Part B, this is part A. They want us to calculate the cost of equity after raising the debt. Then part B, of course, they want us to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. Calculate the WACC before. Of course, they want the WACC before and after raising debt. So let's now look at the solution, how we can best do this number. It will help us to get to know what we are going in. Now, you need to be a little bit careful when you are dealing with such numbers, because one thing you have to know is the fact that whether that company is geared or it's not geared. You need to know. So when the company is ungeared, it means that it has no debt in its capital structure. So remember, as I told you for the examiner, I told you last time that the examiner will not ask you to calculate maybe WACC. The examiner will just tell you to compute the appropriate cost of capital, because here we can compute so many different types of cost of capital, of weighted average cost of capital. Like they can tell you to compute the appropriate cost of capital. Now, when they give you the company is not geared, what do you expect the appropriate cost of capital will be? It will be the cost of equity for an ungeared company. So we need to be careful to see whether the company is geared or it's not geared. So when they want to get geared, because now what we are seeing from this, they are saying that ABC is an ungeared company, meaning it doesn't have this same company doesn't have any equity. Sorry, it doesn't have any debt in its capital structure. It's an ungeared company with a cost of capital of 15%. They have given us the cost of capital for ungeared company. But they are telling us they want to get, because they continue to say that they proposed raising debt at 8% pre-tax. Now, when they wanted to get geared, in other words, to have debt in their capital structure, they can have that as the cost of borrowing. It can either be a pre-tax, meaning that it's before adjusting. Pre-tax means it is before adjusting for tax. And once they get geared, we need to know the proportion of debt to equity. It is very important. Those are the different key things you need to note. Whether the company is geared. 2, we need to know if at all they are trying to get to be a little bit, to be geared. What is the rate? The rate, are they using pre-tax or after tax? After that, then you need to know, after getting geared, what is the composition of debt to equity? Has it changed? It's something that we are going to discuss more. There is a topic that where we are going to meet, and we will be a little bit trying to understand, but I want you to get the concepts early. Now, part A, if you look at part A, the cost of course, the cost of equity after raising the debt is the one they are looking at. Cost of equity after raising debt. So this can be gotten using Gordon model for sure. It can be gotten using Gordon model. But now the question is, if you look at this question, do we have that information that is going to help us to do Gordon model? We don't have any information that is relating to dividend. Yet we know we can do cost of equity using Gordon model, but we don't have any information that is talking about, we don't have any information that is talking about cost of, we don't have information talking about dividends. And that's how the examiner will separate the two methods depending on the information that they have given to you. So if you try to look at this information that they have given to us in the question, if you try to look at this information, they have told us the cost of an ungeared, this is ungeared, it is 15%. They are telling us if they propose to raise at this, but we want cost of equity after they have been geared. So if you look at the kind of information that we have here, the only method that we can use is what we call the M&M. Remember I told you that when you are computing cost of equity can be computed using Gordon model, using Modigliani and Miller, or CAPM. But so far we have not looked at, we have done Gordon model, we haven't looked at CAPM. But right now we are finalizing with Modigliani and Miller, and we are trying to compute cost of capital using M&M. So the only method that is going to be applicable is the Modigliani and Miller. So we are trying to look at the cost of equity when we are using M&M model. So one thing I want you to note is the fact that M&M has issues. You have to know whether the company is geared. If the company is geared, then you need to know what is the composition of debt to equity. So now they told us that cost of capital for a geared company, it's a geared company, KEG, cost of equity of a geared company. This is ungeared. If you base on the information that we had, is equaling to KE, cost of equity of a geared company equals KEU that is cost of equity of ungeared company, plus, put this in bracket, KEU minus KD into 1 minus T VD over VE. So we all know the information. Cost of equity of a geared company is what we are looking for. It is this one. It's the one that we are looking for. But we have cost of equity of ungeared company. They told us it is 15% plus the cost, of course, this is cost of equity of ungeared company, that is 15%, minus what is the cost of debt? The cost of debt they told us is 8%. Of course, you don't adjust, because now if you adjust this one here, remember in this formula we have the tax component that we are going to adjust. So we just bring the other cost of debt as it is before, then we adjust here 1 minus the tax rate of 30%, because they told us the corporation is 30%. But they also went ahead to give us the composition, debt to equity. This VD is actually, VD is the value of debt over value of equity. They gave us the ratio, which is 0.4 times 0.4. So when you take that into your computation, you'll be getting 16.96. That is roughly 17%. That is the cost. So that's part A. That's how we compute that cost of equity. So when they give you debt to equity, the other thing that I need to explain, debt to equity, they gave us a 0.4. It means that now, of course, you know this is 0.4. If you multiply by 100, you make it a percentage, it will mean that the implication here is just simple. It would mean that you have one part is 40% and the other is 60%. Of course, once you add the two, they will give you 100%. So we have our debt as 40%, then equity is 60%. Because the entire thing is what? So the entire company, the composition is 100%. So you need now to get what is your WACC. Of course, we know the formula for WACC. We said WACC equals VE over VE over VE plus VD times KE, that is cost of equity, plus VD over VD plus VE. Of course, this one you multiply by KD, but adjusted for tax, 1 minus the tax rate. That's the formula. But since the company is not geared, because before, remember, we are computing cost of this part B. You see, part B, they told us to compute cost of, they wanted us to compute WACC. But before, this is before gearing. Before gearing, meaning the company never had debt in its capital structure. So if the whole of our formula for WACC, this formula that you are seeing here, the whole of this, we are seeing that the company is not geared. So what is the implication? The whole of this is going to be zero because we don't have any D, we don't have cost of debt. The whole of this is going to be zero because the company is not geared. So WACC will only be this point. So we are going to just pick, so it is just going to be, we are going to compute WACC as just a matter of picking VE over VE plus VD times KE. We are not going to use the other answer that we got in part A because part A we got cost of equity for a geared company, but this company before it wasn't geared. So we are going to use the other cost of ungeared company, cost of equity for a ungeared company they gave us in the question of 15%. So I told you the debt to equity, they gave us the percentages. So now the implication is that the VE was 60% over the VE, which is 60. But now we don't have anything to do with what? We don't have debt, meaning this one is going to be 0. The value of debt, because value of debt is not there. So it is going to be times the 15%. Of course, this one is going to be 6 out of 6, that will be 1, and that will give you the exact answer as 15%. So before it doesn't change. But of course, if they give you that question, of course, the answer is already in the question, but you make sure you compute. To show, just pull out the formula, put in the figures. Because even if you just come here and you keep on adding their zeros in this formula, and you put here, there is a 0 here, there is a 0 here. Of course, there is no way you are going to get 0 out of something. The whole of this is 0. That's why we took it off. But this one is not a 0. So that's why we put in the formula, just to show what we did. In other words, it's like the company is 100% equity. Now, the issue is about after gearing. This part C, or the other part of after. They want to work, but this time around after gearing. After gearing, we said work equals VE over VE plus VD, of course, times KE plus VD over VD plus VE times KD into 1 minus the tax rate. So we put in our values. Remember, we know the compositions. This one we know it is 0.6 or 60% VE. 0.6 over 0.6 plus 0.4. Now here we are taking the one for a geared company because it is now after gearing. So it is going to be 16 point. Let's take the rounded figure, which is 17%. Plus, of course, 0.4 over 0.6 plus 0.4. Then times 8. But this 8% is supposed to be adjusted for tax. 1 minus 0.3. So this one is supposed to be 0.0 because it is 8%. So once you compute this, of course, this is going to be over 1. The whole of this, because this is 0.6 plus 0.4, that is 1. That is 1. 1.0, even this one is 1.0. So we're just going to take the other 0.6 times 17%. Then we also take 0.4 times the other. So it is going to be 0.6 times 17%. Of course, here we can remove the percentages so that we maintain decimals. 0.6 times 0.17 plus, because this is over 1, plus 0.4 times, this one is 0.8 times 0.7 is giving us 0.056. It is also over 1. So this one times 0.4. So this is giving us 0.0224 plus this is giving us 0.102. So once we add, we will be getting 0.1244. Once you convert it to 100%, it will be 20%, 12%. So this 12% is now going to be the cost of capital after gearing. So that's what I wanted you to get from the computations that we wanted to do. Now, what I'm going to look at, or what we are going to look at after this, in the next video, we are going to be looking at the dividend decision. The dividend decision. We shall look at more numbers, because I told you there is a topic where we are going to be more interested after doing portfolio. We will be more interested into looking at all that, because at least we will be done doing CAPAM. When we do CAPAM and we are done with CAPAM, then we can be able to compute the whole cost of capital, and we shall be using all these formulas as I've given you these formulas. So let's meet in the next video as we are talking about the dividend decision.